What's one thing that a zombie doesn't hate? Well, I mean, survivors without guns, but what do they hate? Well, they'd probably obviously hate high firing, high fire rate, worth of huge weapons. Well, there is one thing that, would be afraid to them. A minigun. The minigun, despite some of its flaws, is still an incredibly fun weapon to use, especially if you can perform it with things like in co-op, or, you can go on huge murdering sprees like you see in the background right now. It's an incredibly fun weapon to use, and, well, obviously enough, there would be some tips that would help out, especially, in hardcore and whatnot, if you do plan to bring a weapon like it. So, let's go ahead and talk about the minigun. The minigun is unlocked at rank 28, Emerald 2, and costs 100,000 red bucks, making it one of the most current, high-ranking weapons in terms of both rank and cash. It does 23 damage to the body and 35 to the head. If you're noticing that 3 bullets per shot, we'll get into that in a second. Spread is high, range is medium, and it has 200 out of 0 ammo, meaning that it can only be replenished by, getting your ammo. Fire rate is 600 rounds per minute, hence you'll see why with 3 bullets per shot, and the fire mode's automatic with a wind-up involved. So interesting enough, the reason why the minigun fires 3 bullets instead of 1, it's mainly due to optimization, as of course, if the minigun had a fire rate like, 1800, it would cause incredibly easy lag. And, well, if you're familiar with Roblox and how remote events work, it can be pretty chaotic. However, though, combine the minigun's 3 bullets with 200 ammo and a 600 RPM, which is about as fast as the UMP, you have an incredibly fast weapon that can deal lots of damage and shred through riot shields incredibly easily. Instead of aim down sights, right click revs up the minigun, while holding left click will, rev it up and then instantly fire it the moment it's ready. Now with that out of the way, let's move on to some tips. Number 1 is really not really a good tip for the first one, but you should always attempt to take pot shots at jetpack zombies in the distance. Obviously enough, despite the huge spread it has, your 3 bullets will suffice enough and could potentially result in a hit. My second tip is just, use the DPS to your advantage. It can tear through riot shields incredibly quickly, and, well, shred groups of zombies pretty easily. My third tip is that if you run out of ammo, or you need to retreat in case there are too many zombies going after you at once, you should always switch to your melee weapon or your secondary to get away. Oh yeah, by the way, for your secondary, you should always equip something like the Subaru or Deagle. Obviously enough, you should be high enough level to own these weapons, and, well, that's why I'm presuming you own them for this. The Subaru is very good for taking care of zombies close range that are not riots. Obviously enough, you can still see it does amazing damage. Deagle is also pretty good for that as well, in case you want to quickly finish off a riot if they, still have health on them, but barely any. My next tip is more of a movement tip, but you should always walk backwards instead of trying to go in circles and jump. Obviously enough, considering your slow movement speed and the inability to jump while wielding your minigun, it's always a great idea just to walk back, especially on modes like co-op where you're only up against AI zombies. Obviously enough, you should always still prioritize bloodsuckers as they can still hit you, even if you're trying to walk backwards. Now let's talk about the game modes you should and shouldn't bring on, because while some are good, some could be better. In my opinion, Survival, Outbreak, and Assassination are probably the best ones to bring on. This is mainly due to the fact that you have a slow-moving minigun, and while having 100 health is definitely helpful compared to hardcore with only, 10 health. Next up would be Juggernaut, in the PvE aisle. In my opinion, this is probably the worst mode to bring it on. Considering your slow movement speed and the Juggernaut's incredibly quick movement speed, you'd be better off just taking something else like an AA-12. Obviously enough, if you still want to take the minigun, obviously if he's running towards you, you could just take out your secondary and then just run at him. Or backwards, whatever movement juking you prefer. Now let's talk about the two PvP modes, Deathmatch and Sudden Death. Sudden Death is actually probably the worst PvP mode to bring it on. Yes, I know, despite its high damage and high fire rate, obviously enough, by the time you're revving up, players could have already gotten rid of your armor and could be shooting into you, which would, by the time you started firing at them, you'd die before you could give a chance to get rid of their armor. Finally, for Deathmatch, this is probably not a bad weapon to bring on, because, well, considering that you have infinite respawns and, you don't have to reload your minigun ammo every time you respawn, you can always just hold down M2 and hope for the best. Which is, in my opinion, probably the best, why in my opinion is the best mode to bring it on for PvP. Anyways, with that out of the way, I want to thank you all for watching the second guide. Obviously, I want to thank a viewer in particular named Kaiju X for suggesting this idea to me. Obviously enough, he was about to buy the minigun and thought I could give him some little tips along the way. Anyways, with that out of the way, feel free to suggest any different weapons, ideas, or literally anything down below. I think I might do a Dread commentary next video instead of a weapon guide, considering that these are kind of easy to make, despite the annoying voiceover thing I'm trying to do. Anyways, thank you all for watching. I hope you all have an amazing day, and please stay safe.